this is Ambi from Board Game Blitz, and today I'm going to tell you my top 10 favorite board games of 2024. These are the board games that were released in 2024, not my favorite that I played in 2024. That's a different video that you can watch after this one, but a lot of these I actually played first in 2025 because that's how board gaming works. You don't always play games right when they come out. On the podcast, every year we do the Blitz Awards, which is like our favorite games of the year, but we don't list them usually. We don't do like a top 5 or top 10. And so I decided to do a top 10 this year since I do have enough games played to do a top 10. So it turns out in the BG Stats app, you can look at games and you can filter by games played. So I looked at the games that were published in 2024, played at least once. And of the thousands of games that came out in the year 2024, I've played a total of 31. So I'm definitely qualified to do a top 10 list. Oh, and also, I play a lot of games with my kids. Like, about half of my plays are with my kids. And they're starting to get to the age where the games that they can play are starting to be ones that I enjoy too. So some of those are going to make this list. And this isn't going to just be my top 10 favorites, but like playing with my kids also makes it my favorite. So this is going to be an interesting list. My number 10 is River of Gold, which is a strategy game. I've only played it once and I don't quite remember all of it, but I know I enjoyed it. My friend actually works for Office Dog, which is the publisher of this game, so we played her copy. And I remember you roll your dice and like those determine what you can do. You can move your boat that many spaces. You have different boats that you can choose which one to move. And you can like play a card. You have to like buy the card and you get points for that. Or you can like buy a space on the board and you get points for that. There's lots of different ways to get points. And I remember the cool thing is like you own a space on the board. When you buy it, you build like a building on there. And then when people land on it, you get a bonus. But they also get something for landing on it. Wherever they land, they get the resources of the places that are touching it. And so if you have a space that's touching like 3 different places, then it's more likely that people will land on it. And then you also get the bonus. So that's nice, kind of like a Monopoly feeling of people landing on your space, but then it's not as bad because like you don't actually have to pay and go bankrupt. This is one of like the few Euro style games I've played recently and I enjoyed it. So that's why it's my number 10. My number 9 is Slay the Spire, the board game, which I also only played once, but it was much more recently. This is a cooperative board game based on the video game. It's a card game. Each player has a different deck of cards in your deck building, so you have the cards that you can play, you spend energy to play them, and you're attacking different monsters. But the cool thing is like you can upgrade your deck of cards, so you can like upgrade cards or you get new cards, and you're kind of building up your deck to combo it so that your attacks get better and better. I haven't played Slay the Spire, the video game, but I've heard that the board game is a good adaptation, so if you like the video game, then the board game is probably also good for you, but like it was good for me even though I don't play the video game. And number 8 is A Message from the Stars, which I actually just played at Dice Tower West. This is a cooperative or team deduction game. It's themed around aliens and trying to communicate with scientists, but it's really a math logic puzzle mixed with like a Codenames type game. The mixture of the two kind of makes it a very specific game that I'm not sure who would play it much, which is why I don't know if I'm ever going to play it again too. But I did enjoy the deduction in it. The alien has these 6 letters that you're trying to get the scientists to guess. And so a couple of them are worth 1 point each. Some of them are ×2, and one of them is a negative thing. So if you give a clue word, like word, W-O-R-D, and like the O is a +1 and the R is a ×2, then that would be 2 total. So you give them the clue word and the value, and you do that multiple times, and the scientists will figure out from the clues and the values, they kind of do math logic and try to figure out what letters are which values from the whole alphabet. So there's that, but then also the word clues you're giving are supposed to point to specific words. So you have like 3 words on a card that people are trying to guess. And so the scientists and aliens each have a card of 3 words and they're each trying to get the other team to guess it. So the alien is giving clues for their words and then the scientist is giving clues for their words. And all of those clue words are going to be getting values for the math logic part. It's weird, like that mix. And it's really hard to think of words that are good clues for the words you're trying to guess, but also have the letters that you need information on. So yeah, I had played a partial demo and then I also played a 2-player game with Toby and we did pretty well in the 2-player game, except for I wasn't able to guess any of Toby's words because he did words really heavily on getting the letters right, but then the words didn't really match his Codenames part as well. So yeah, the problem is it's dry erase, which Toby hates, and I'm starting to hate as well. I think it would be better with just like a pad of paper and be able to do that, because this one it could be done, I think, with a pad of paper. But dry erase is kind of annoying. My number 7 is actually a children's game, which I have not played by myself, but this is Rove Jr. This is a solo puzzly children's game that I got as a review copy from Button Shy Games. So I've played Rove, the regular solo game, but this is a children's version of it. It's simpler. It's a 18 card puzzle game. So basically a spatial puzzle. You're placing cards down and then you can move them on your turn and you're trying to match certain patterns. I like the original game, and this one's like a simpler, easier version to win. The original one is kind of hard and takes longer because I have to like think more. But this one so far I've only played, like my kid has played and I've helped. And I thought it was really cool. Nice puzzle for him. And I think it's one like I should try it sometime myself on a harder difficulty, and it'll be a good, simpler version of Rove. My number 6 is another children's game. It's Little Alchemist. And I got this as a review copy from CGE. So this is kind of more an aspirational number 6 because I haven't played that far into it and my kids aren't quite old enough for it, but this is a deduction legacy type game. There's like different levels that you unlock, and so far we've only played level 1 and we've unlocked level 2, but haven't played it yet. It's a basic deduction game. If you've played the game Alchemist, it's like the deduction part of that. I played Alchemist a long time ago. Like I had heard it was a deduction game and was excited about that, but like I liked the deduction part, but I felt like it wasn't as integral to the gameplay part because it was mostly worker placement, and then like you didn't even have to do well in the deduction, and the deduction wasn't that difficult. So I'm excited that this is just the deduction part basically and is making it more like that part. I want to play it more, but my kids aren't old enough yet. So like this is when I ranked the games, it was like, oh yeah, I really want to play this. So it's up higher, but I've only played level 1. My number 5 is Wilmot's Warehouse, which is a cooperative memory game based on the video game Wilmot's Warehouse. I have played the video game of this one, and it was like a storage management game. You're putting these blocks with different icons in them in certain spaces to try to remember where they are and then like bring them back quickly to deliver to customers. And so the board game turns it into a memory game. You have these icon tiles and you're placing them face down on the board, but each time you're like looking at it, you kind of say a story about what it was and then put it down, and you're cooperatively doing this. And in each day, there's a different restriction that gets turned over. Like, oh, only the person who picks it up can look at it, or the person who picks it up cannot look at it and everyone else has to describe it to them or something. So that makes it harder to remember because for me, like I need to look at the item to remember it. That helps me a lot. So if I don't see it, then it's really hard to remember what it was. But basically you're putting the tiles down on this board and you kind of like remember a story. And then there's a timed round where you're trying to match. You have another set of duplicate cards, but there's extra tiles in there. So like you have to pick out the ones that were in your story and then match them up. I'm not usually a fan of memory games, but like making it cooperative and then like adding the story I think helped because I still remember a lot of the story of the game that we played. We've only played it once. I do want to try playing it with my kids because they recently played a memory game that involved a story for kids, and like they hadn't really enjoyed memory games before, but I think when they tell a story, they're a lot better at it. So I think like the telling of the story is the fun part and makes the memory fun. And the icons are very abstract, so you can make up cool stories with it, I think. So yeah, Wilmot's Warehouse is my number 5, and I do want to play it again, but I do not own the game. It's my friend's copy. My number 4 is Expressions, which is a cooperative deduction card game, which I played once, my friend's copy again. I really like cooperative deduction games, and so that's why they rank highly on my list. But Expressions is kind of like The Crew in the way you're giving clues. So everyone has a hand of cards, they're different colors and numbers, and I think it's themed around like inside out feelings type thing. So like different colors are different feelings, but the theme isn't very strong. But you're going to be giving clues about your hand by placing down cards in your hand and saying like, this is the highest number of this color, or this is the only number of this color, or this is the lowest number of that color. And so people will figure out what's in your hand based on those clues, and then you're trying to guess what's in the hand. You have like a certain number of mistakes you can make, and you're trying to guess all the cards basically, or like more cards than not guessing cards. So I thought that was an interesting way of deduction, and I always like quick cooperative deduction card games, so that's why Expressions is my number 4. And number 3 is The Gang, which is a cooperative poker game. This is another cooperative card game that has a feeling of deduction and like mind games. So in the game, it's Texas Hold'em poker basically, but you're kind of saying what hand you have at each round instead of betting. So you start out with the 2 cards in your hand. I don't play Texas Hold'em that much. I don't play poker that much, but I kind of know the rules. But there's a little reference that shows the poker hands in case you forget, because I always get confused on flushes and straights. Anyway, you have your 2 cards and then like 3 cards on the table, and you can say, oh, I think I have the best hand, or I think I have the worst hand. And so like there's chips on the table 1 through the number of players. So you take the one that you think is yours, the best or the worst or somewhere in the middle, and everyone just takes theirs that they think their hand is ranked. As the next card comes out, then you can take another chip. There's chips for each round, so you kind of have your history. So you can say like, oh, this person thought they had the best hand on the first deal, but then as this card came out, then they switched to the worst hand or something, or like this one switched from the worst to the best. So if they switched to the best when like the third spade came out or something, and they're like, oh, they probably have 2 spades because they have a flush in their hand, or like they are trying to guess what people have based on when they switched their idea of what the hand is. And so I like that. My husband Toby played poker a lot, so at first we weren't quite in sync with him, but it is cool like getting in sync with people and like figuring out based on what they think their hand is, what it is. And there's also these challenge cards that make it harder. You're supposed to like guess, oh, what hand exactly does that person have? And a lot of times in the game, like after people reveal, it'd be like, oh, I thought you had this, and like, oh, I was right. I thought you had exactly this hand. And so that's cool, like with people who are familiar with poker, at least somewhat. Even if they don't play all the time like me, because I don't like gambling. Yeah, it's fun to play with people who know poker enough to be able to figure out what hands people have based on how they're betting. But in this case, it's not betting, it's like cooperative ordering. So yeah, the gang is pretty fun. My number 2 is the Morrison Game Factory, which I actually played in 2023 because I got a traveling review copy from Post Curious for their Kickstarter. But this is a solo, well, you can play multiplayer, but I played it solo, puzzle type game. Kind of escape room, but not timed. So I talked about this on the podcast before, but like I really enjoyed the story. I love things by Post Curious. They make like really cool puzzle games, mixtures of physical and online components. But with the Morrison Game Factory, I got really invested in the story, and I think it's my favorite story of their games. I always like all their like story and puzzles. They go really well together. They always have good quality puzzles and quality components. Yeah, but this one, like I remember getting really invested in the story, and I think I actually cried. So yeah, I really enjoyed the Morrison Game Factory. It's a one-time play, so I'm never going to play it again, but it was my number 2 game of 2024. And finally, my number 1 game of 2024 is the one game that I own that's not a children's game, and that is Bomb Busters. This is a cooperative deduction, limited communication game that sometimes has real time. And those are like 4 of my favorite mechanics. I love it. It's a campaign, like cooperative deduction game. You have tiles. The theme is you're trying to defuse bombs by snipping the tiles. So the tiles have numbers. There's blue wires and they each have numbers 2 through 12 and there's 4 of each. And you have to snip them in pairs. And it's kind of like a more specific Go Fish, but it's cooperative. So you're asking someone specifically, is that card a 2? And if it is, then they put it down and you have your 2 and you put it down. You can only ask if you have that number. But everyone's tiles are ordered on their tray. So as you guess tiles and you see like there's a 2 there and there's a 4 here and there's a couple ones in between, so you know that's somewhere between 2 and 4. So you're trying to defuse all the blue ones without snipping any red ones. And you kind of know there's red ones and there's also yellow ones that you can do, but you have to do the colors. And there's also special powers. And then it's also a campaign. There's 66 missions total. We've gone through like 23, I think. You open boxes and new things come out, new rules, which I won't spoiler, but like they change up the game some. It's still the same base rules of the same feeling of like cooperative Go Fish, limited communication, has kind of a Hanabi feel with giving the clues and like deciding when it's good to risk a life because you lose a life when people guess wrong, but then they also get to give the information. But the missions add new things and make it like it's a modular kind of game, and each new mission is a nice, a fresh challenge. So I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, Bomb Busters is really fun. I've been playing it a lot. One of my favorite games, because it feels like this is a game that was made for me. And I knew I was going to like it before we got it. And I was like, okay, we're going to buy something at the game store. We should get Bomb Busters. That's what I want to get because we're going to love it. And I was right. So yeah, Bomb Busters is my favorite game of 2024. All right, so those were my favorite games of 2024. I think I wanted to quickly talk about my kids' favorite games. They haven't officially ranked them, but I looked at the list of games that they've played, and based on their plays and like what they actually asked for versus me asking them if they want to play this game, I think their favorite games that were published in 2024 are Kids Express and 21 Hand Games. This I got as a review copy, Kids Express, but I bought this one. So Kids Express is a dexterity flicking game, cooperative, where there's a big train and you're trying to flick the band bandits off. You have like flick a little slingshot onto the bandits to get them off, and then you're going on the train and getting the treasure and trying to take the treasure away from the bandits, basically. It's a fun, big 3D train, and then like the flicking is fun too. One of my kids loves trains, and the other one likes defeating baddies, so it works for them. And then 21 Hand Games is actually 21 different games. It's a book that has like colorful pictures. So I think my kid like just likes looking at the pictures and then picking a game and being able to play it, and that's really cool. So we haven't played all of them, and I'm not sure like if he has a favorite of the game or he just likes being able to pick a game and trying to play it. But it's basically hand games like rock, paper, scissors, but some of them are more complicated, some of them are easier, but they're all different. There's a big range in there. So that's kind of cool, just being able to play games without anything, just your hands. All right, so that was our favorite games of 2024. Let me know what yours are in the comments below, especially if it's something that you think I would like with limited communication and deduction and stuff. But if you want to hear more top 2024 games, then check out the Blitzies, the 2024 Blitzies on our podcast. You can also check out boardgameoftheyear.org, which has a list of a bunch of different reviewers and their top games of the year. And if you want to hear my favorite new to me games that I played in 2024 but weren't released in 2024, then you can check out that video over here. Thanks for watching Board Game Blitz. Bye!